Hello everyone, it's me Hattie and I am back for another video. This is going to be the Great Gatsby mansion and I have been very excited to be able to share this with you. I built this over the weekend. So I built this on Saturday evening. I spent about 6.5 hours doing this and I was really happy with once it was finished. Of course it's not completely finished. I've still got to do the interior, which is going to be coming up in part 2 of this video, probably this week. I just want to make sure that it looks really good before I share it. So if it's not this week, then it'll be next week and I'll share another video this week. I don't know, but we will see what happens. I'll try my best to share it this week. But anyway, this build, I was very inspired, of course, by the film, The Great Gatsby. I also read the book a while ago. I had to do it for GCSE at school, so it was a very interesting book and it's one of the few books that I've actually stuck to and read all the way through because I'm not much of a reader. But The Great Gatsby, it's a really good book and I would definitely read it again. I mean, I just really enjoyed it. So I thought, you know what, I love the book, I love the film, I love everything about it, and this house just pretty much tops it off for me. I was just like, yes, I have to do it. I have to feature it on my channel. So I was thinking about a good way that I could do it. And I was also thinking about a way that I could possibly incorporate builds like this as a series on my channel. So an idea that I have at the moment is that I'm going to be doing a build series on mansions out of films. I did think about doing Disney princess houses and Disney princess mansions or palaces, pretty much anything, you know, like cottages, all that kind of stuff. But honestly, I want to wait till we hear some more about these terrain tools because I really think that to do Disney palaces or castles or anything Disney really, I do need some hills and stuff like that, especially for the Frozen castle, because the actual Frozen palace, I think the one that Elsa creates when she's in a bit of a strop, she is on the top of a mountain and I couldn't really create that without terrain tools unless I was to compensate and stack up objects and use a lot of moving objects, which I don't like to use. So I might wait a month or two just to kind of see what's going on with that. I mean, I don't know if it's ever going to happen, but I did see a video just of someone basically saying that they had a glitch and it might potentially happen. So I just want to make sure and see what's going on with that. So anyway, in the meantime, film series of builds, yes. So if you have any ideas on films, like houses that you've seen from films, palaces, big buildings, humongous buildings, then just let me know in the comments below. I was going to call this house after somebody, but I thought because it was the Great Gatsby, I didn't want to confuse anyone. So of course things are going to be back to normal like when I start sharing my other builds, because I am thinking of names to call them. So of course, if you have any names, if you want your name to be the name that I'm going to call my next build, then just let me know in the comments below, because that's what I'm doing. That's a new thing on my channel which I'm going to be doing, and you'll have probably seen that if you do follow my builds. I've had a few builds that are out at the moment which have been named after people, so that's what's going on there. But anyway, so at this point I was trying to look at the picture and I was thinking to myself, how am I going to do it? Like, I mean, the problem is as well, I actually don't think it's a real house. I had a proper look at it and I was thinking to myself, it doesn't look like a real house. It looks like it's been, I mean, it might have potentially been a real house at one point, but then it's been computer generated and it's just kind of gone from there. So the only images that I could find of the house was from the side and it was very difficult to follow. But of course I wanted to do my own kind of take on it anyway. So I wanted to give it the HattySims look and with all the landscaping and stuff, and just kind of make it my own a bit and, you know, do it like inspired by, not an exact copy, because of course if I was going to do an exact copy, I would have to have a lot more room, I would have to have a lot more window choice, a lot more everything, basically everything you can think of, and that would basically be what was going on. But at this point I was picking out the colour for the build and I was making sure that it looked nice. I couldn't really decide what colour to go for, so I think I went with an off-white in the end, which I thought was a good choice. I thought that an off-white would be good because I think the actual build is pretty much an off-white. I did try brick, but it didn't really work for what I wanted, so I didn't end up going with that. But the actual plot that I used is the 64x64 in Windenburg. I was very keen on using that plot because I wanted to create the effect of the green light across the water, which is of course in the book, if anyone knows what I'm going on about, it's when Gatsby is looking across the water and he's reaching out to Daisy. So that's what I wanted to do. I wanted lots of water there around the house. I did look at the other 64 by 64 plots in Windenburg, but when I looked at it, if I'm being completely honest with everyone, the water that was in the other plot was absolutely pitiful. Like, there was hardly anything there, and it just wouldn't have looked good. It was just like a little bit of a stream, so I just didn't want that. And I know that with this build, if you were thinking about it realistically from like a realistic point of view, like for building, then it would definitely be difficult for the guests to get here. Like, if you're gonna have parties and things in this house, like you would have probably seen on the bit of the intro at the beginning, if you were gonna do that for your own game, then it would be difficult. It would actually be quite difficult, because realistically the guests would have to arrive on the island via boat or plane, but hey, why not? It's The Sims, so anything can happen. But anyway, so at this point I was going around and I was putting in the fence on the top of the walls, and the reason I do this is to give a really nice look when I go to add the paneling around it, and that is just what I was doing. I was adding so much of this. I was on like a paneling mission at this point. I was like, yes, I need paneling in my life. I need paneling on this build, because I was looking at the real build and I was thinking to myself, well, it's got a lot. It has, like, it's got a lot on the top though, so it's a bit top heavy. Like, it's hardly got anything below it, or at least you can't see it because it's covered in ivy. So I don't know, I was having a lot of fun. I was thinking about the way that I could decorate the windows. I didn't want to go with too many archways though, because I thought that if I put too many archways in the build, like especially around the sides of the house and also the back, it would just mean that it wouldn't look that great inside, because it would be a really open space and it just wouldn't look very practical. I always like my builds to look like they're really usable and you could actually have them. You could have your Sims living them and it would look quite nice from an actual house perspective. So I was thinking a lot about that for the back. I didn't want to kind of go overboard with the whole archways and stuff, but what I did actually do, and I don't think I showed it, but what will happen is with the archways there'll be some windows on the other side of them, so it should be pretty fun or something like that. So you'll see that. I mean, I'll explain it a little bit actually. I think I will show it on the video, so we'll probably see what I do with the archways and with putting the windows behind them in a bit. But then I was trying to think about the back garden, and I can honestly say, in all truthfulness, yes, I can say that. So in all truthfulness, the garden is my favorite part of this whole build. I was so happy with it. And I usually struggle a lot with what to put in the gardens. I was absolutely dreading doing the garden for this house though, but it did work out pretty well, so I was happy with the results, and you'll get to see that in a little bit. But at this part I was adding some plants to the top of the build. I did skip the part where I did change the colour, mainly because I don't even leave this colour in, so I do change it again at the end, and it was just a really pointless bit, so I left that out for you. You're welcome. So anyway, I was adding the ivy at this part, and it was an interesting part for me because I was trying to follow it through, but I was also trying to have my own style on it and really use the style of ivy that I use quite oftenly, but it wasn't really working because I think with my ivy and my landscaping, it's quite a messy style, but I think that the messy style does kind of work for my builds. But I think for this house, it doesn't really work at all because it's so neat. And you know, this house would have so many gardeners just constantly tending the house, and so many staff members and people that would work there, that I just don't think that it would be messy. I just don't think it would even have a chance to be messy. So I did try to, I suppose, correct it after a little bit. I did actually add some major ivy to it after this, but I do actually think it looks better like this, the ivy. So as you see it, it's probably the way that it's going to end up looking. I did actually go back at the end though, and I spent about an hour maybe just going around correcting the ivy and making it look really perfect. So even though you won't see all of me doing the ivy on the video itself, be sure that if you do download this lot into your game, or you want to see the pictures, in fact I'll put up the screenshots at the end. But anyway, so if you do actually download it, then it will be really neat looking, and I'll try try to perfect it for you. So anyway, I was adding the ivy to the top here, but it still was not going anywhere, and I did actually end up taking that whole thing off. So that's what I did when I went back for the whole hour whilst I was correcting things. I did take off the ivy at the top because it just wasn't working for me, and I wanted to leave it on the footage so that you could see it, because you know I like to leave my mistakes on sometimes. But if you did want to have it like that, then you could just add it back and you could just have it that way, which I mean it doesn't look bad, but it's just not what I particularly wanted for the build. But you know, you can change whatever you like, I don't mind. It's your build after this and you're free to do whatever you want with it. So anyway, I was adding some more plants around this area. I don't actually think that the main build itself would have this many plants around the build, because I think that it would probably be just stone. I'm just guessing. I just think it would be a stone path and it would be quite plain, and it would be a place where the people could park the cars and things, even though of course you couldn't get cars to this island whatsoever because they couldn't drive here. But I just, you know, I was thinking a lot about that, but I thought, you know, I'm gonna go a bit overboard and I'm gonna do it maybe inspired by the build more than anything, because I don't like to particularly copy anything to be exactly how it is. So I was thinking about that, so I did put that in, and at this point I was rearranging everything. I went back and I just rearranged a little bit of ivy there, just so you can see, even though it doesn't stay in. If you're ever wondering on my other builds how I do that with ivy, I just press the Alt key and I rearrange it, and that's what I do. I've also started pressing the Shift key, which generates another ivy right there for you to use straight after you've placed one down. So that's really handy to use that trick if you want to. But then I was just putting in, what was I putting in? So I was putting in some plants up here. I don't think that was working though. That looks pretty bad. I've got to say that looks terrible. What on earth was I thinking? But I'm really happy that this is how it doesn't turn out looking at the side there, and I am happy that I did realise that it just looked really uneven, so I did take it out in the end. But I think it took me a while, and I think that because I was really tired whilst I was building this as well, because it was getting really late at this point, I was thinking to myself, am I gonna go to bed? And I was thinking, I don't really want to, because sometimes I just don't get tired, and it's not that I'm an insomniac or anything. It's just that when I'm really inspired sometimes, or when I'm just in the mood to do something, it's just like I just don't want to go to bed, and I'm just feeling like, nah, I can't. And then even if I try to, like, I still can't do it. So it was pretty late actually. It was about 12 o'clock at this point. Maybe a bit later than that, maybe 12:30. I usually stay up till about maybe 1:30. That's pretty late, I know, but I don't know, like sometimes I just can't sleep. So yeah, that's me. But then other times, like, I go to sleep and I sleep like a log, and seriously, like, you cannot get me up. I sleep through everything. Like, I slept through a fire at my old house. Can you believe that? I did actually sleep through it though. So it's not great. And yeah, I'm a very deep sleeper. I used to sleepwalk as well, which isn't fantastic. I don't know if sleepwalking runs in the family. I don't know, because I do know that my granddad used to sleepwalk. He used to sleepwalk so much. He used to just like go into his cupboard every night, and no one knew where he got to, but he was in his cupboard. No one could find him, and he was just creeping around. That was my granddad's story. That's the first time I ever mentioned my granddad. So that's that. But anyways, this is the crazy ivy that I was talking about. So at this point, it was just getting too much. It was just a whole ivy takeover, and I'm really happy that it didn't end up looking that way, because I just don't think that it was very nice. And I think that I'm going to take more care in future with my landscaping, especially when it comes to big builds, because I just don't think that my landscaping is necessarily fit for every single build. So doing big builds like this, I definitely need to be more careful, be a bit more neater, and make sure that I just don't go overboard with it, because this is what happens. This is what happens when you let HattySims loose on The Sims 4 with all this landscaping. This is what happens. So, you know, there's that to look forward to. But anyway, so I was trying to think about a way that I could put some plants near the door, but it wasn't really working out. So I took it out, and yeah, didn't really work. So that's what I was doing there. But I was adding some more ivy. That was the main gist of this whole thing. This was a big part of the build, and I don't know why I like ivy so much, because I know that it's not particularly good for building because it does take the nutrients out of the brick, I think. I don't know. My nan was explaining it to me, my grandma I should have said. I call her my nan, but she's actually my grandma. She was explaining it to me and she was saying, well, what happens is it kind of like sucks the water out of the cement or something, so it can actually break the bricks and it can become really brittle and the building can fall down after a bit, which is lovely. No, it's not really lovely at all, but I like ivy. What can I say? I think it looks lovely on The Sims 4, so I try and use it as much as possible. So, I mean, this is just pitiful. Like, I wanted to leave it in for you guys so you could see what I was going through at this point. There was so much to get through, but you know, it was definitely worth it. I've been building so much recently as well. I've got so many builds coming up this week, next week, the week after. In total, I built 4 builds over this weekend. I built 3 of them on Saturday and I built one of them on Sunday, which was this one. No, did I build on Saturday? It's the other way around. So I built 1 on Saturday and 3 on Sunday. Yes, that was it. So I've got so many coming up, like ranging from Mediterranean and stuff like that, so that would be pretty fun. But anyway, so I was pretty much finished with the landscaping at this point, I hope. So I mean, I was also thinking about a way that I could really make a lovely fencing area around the build and make it really fancy, because I felt like a proper area to keep the plants in and make it look quite tame would be really lovely for this build. I just thought that it would make it more or less and it would look really good, and that's what I tried to do. So I did actually see this on the picture, or at least I think I did. I think that I saw a kind of fence around the side with something similar to this, but just not this many plants whatsoever. But I kind of exaggerated it. Yeah, I'm pretty proud. So I was also adding some fountains, because the fountains are a humongous part of this build. And actually, it was kind of sad, because if I'd had, let's say like 100 by 100, which would be a humongous plot, but if I did, and I could have this plot completely elevated, and I could have like staircase after staircase just kind of swooping down, it would be really cool, and it could have looked so accurate as well, because that's pretty much how the build is. I think it's kind of like on a hill, but it's like on a concreted hill or something, so it's got like staircases going down it, and it looks really amazing. So I mean, we just got to imagine, but I think it looks really nice in the bluffs area. I was really happy with the plot that it was on, and I think I'll definitely be building on this plot again. I just don't know when yet, but I was really happy with it. So that was that. But I was also adding some fountains. I wanted something really fancy here, and I wanted to have something really decorative at the front, because I wanted the front to be at the main area, and seeing as I couldn't really have it too similarly to the film, I wanted to really make my own ideas come to life on this one, and I wanted to do something a little bit extreme. So that fountain was there, which was nice, and I was adding some more things. I was also thinking, like, whilst I was doing this, you know, about the actual look of the front area and how I could make it look really fancy. I knew that most of it was going to be lighting up the area and making it look really special at night, because that is a humongous part of it. And you know, lighting an area up at night is important for a build, because it means that, you know, you get that beautiful effect, the beautiful fairy tale fantasy look. And for the party perspective of this build, like, you could have so many parties here, and if you do, then please send me pictures, because I love to see what people have like in the house and like what people do with my builds. So yeah, definitely, if you do, then link me on Twitter or something, because I love to see that kind of stuff, and it's really cool. So I will probably be doing that at some point, so you'll probably be seeing some pictures from me from, like, I don't know, like when I use the house, like when I get around to it and stuff, so that'll be interesting. This is the part when I was just neatening everything up, but I didn't leave all of it in. I've mentioned that so much now. I've mentioned that so much, but you know, I was trying out new things, and that is a part of it as well. Like, if you're stuck on The Sims 4 and you can't think about what to put into place, just remember, like, you can always delete stuff. It just doesn't have to stay like that. Like, if you're ever stuck, then hey, just delete it. That's what I do. I just delete stuff, and not everything works out, but it's really good to try new things and experiment, because that is a lot of what my builds are. I just kind of try new things out, experiment, and I see what I end up with, which is pretty nice, to be honest. So at this point I was doing the front area, and this was the exciting part for me. I think this was a bit which made everything kind of come to life a bit for me, and I was trying to blend it into this area, which really worked, let me just say. I mean, look at the blend, just look at the blend. Can we just take a moment to appreciate that blend right there? Because I was really happy with it, and I was not expecting that at all. And hey, what can I say, like, it just kind of worked out. Whoa, that's a loud truck. Can anyone hear that? That's cars in the background. That was a tractor just going past my house there. But anyway, so back to the build. This is the point where I was thinking about a main area, and I knew that I wanted to put some cars in as well. Of course, I was putting some rocks around this point before I even started thinking about the cars, and probably a lot of people are going to roll their eyes at me and be like, why on earth did you put cars there? But honestly, I was trying to follow the film as much as possible. You know, I didn't want to build on 50 by 50 in Willow Creek, even though it would have still been nice. I just didn't want to do it. And I thought, you know, the other 64 by 64, even though it was nice, it just didn't have a lot of water there, so I didn't want to do that either. And I did. Like, you won't see that yet. I added cars in a little bit, but you'll see how I did that. You will see. I was pretty proud of that, and of course I was adding some ivy around to the sides. I did kind of forget about the back and the sides when it came to ivy, but I did do it. You'll see that probably at the end of the video, but I just didn't want to focus too much on the back and the sides until I got the front right, because the front was, of course, the main part. It's the main part of my build. So I wanted to get that completely correct before I started anything else. And this is really when I started landscaping the rest of it. I just kind of started bit by bit because I knew how long it was going to take me. So I didn't, of course, want to dive straight into it. I wanted to have like a proper think about it first, which I was doing. So what I did is I mixed it with my ivy style, and I just went around this area, and I was pretty happy with it. I think it looks nice with a mixed style. I think that this part of the build I'm pretty happy with, to be honest. I liked it. I like the fact that it looks quite stacked. I don't know, it looks like it's thicker at the bottom, but I do, like, it just kind of works for me. I think it works more around the sides of the build than it does with the front. And of course I was desperate to use those stained glass windows. I've been wanting to use them since I saw them, but I just couldn't find the right way to do it, and I just think this house is the perfect place to use them because they just look absolutely phenomenal, and I love them. I just love the shape. I just think they look so fairy tale-ish, and I just really like them, so that's what I was doing. I was also adding some trees, so I went back to the front just briefly and I put some trees in. Don't focus too much on that ivy. I know I keep saying it, but seriously don't, because it does change around so much. But then I was putting in some railings and just making it look nice. I thought the other one just looked a bit too bright and too bold, so I did change it, and I did that with it. So then I was adding some trees around the front because the actual build has so many trees around. Like, so many trees, and it's just completely filled with life, and it just looks really hidden, which I really like. I love the privacy of a big build like this, and I think that in reality it would be really private. I think that, you know, like, not everybody would be able to access the build, and it would be just kind of secluded, like a secret build, I guess, which I really love. So I was thinking a lot about that whilst I was building this as well. I was thinking of that whole secluded look, and I think what a more perfect place to build a secluded house on than the plot I'm using now, like in the Blimps. I was thinking to myself, like, whilst I was building this, I wonder if we can see the sea monster from here. I was trying like so hard to find her, but I couldn't find her whatsoever. I actually was playing the game the other day, and I found Emily, I think her name is. So I found her, and I was fast forwarding the game, and I missed her. Like, I seriously missed her by like a second, and it was so irritating because I just found her and then she just like popped under the water again, so I missed her. And I was doing that for like, I think maybe 3 or 4 days straight with my Sims until they were like really hungry. They needed to go home, and I was like, no, we're waiting here, guys. We've got to see the sea monster. And it just wasn't working out for me. So I haven't properly seen her yet, but I'm hoping to be able to see her in the future. So then you would have just seen that I did add the cars, so that's what I was talking about, I added a group of cars there, so that's what I was doing. I did add some mazes around because I think that mazes are just such a wonderful fairy tale like thing to have in a build like this, and I was just really feeling it. I was thinking to myself, what can I put in, which is a bit unusual, and it's also like not that time consuming, if I'm being completely honest with everybody, because if I was to landscape this whole area, you know, I don't know how I'd feel about it. But I thought with mazes, it's something fun for the Sims to do. It's something that kind of links back to this whole Van Windenburg estate, or like the stately home, which is really big in Windenburg itself. The yellow one, I don't know what it's called, but it's that one. So I mean, it kind of links back to that with the whole maze thing that's going on there. And a really interesting thing, if you wanted to do it, would be to have ghosts in this house. So, you know, if anyone's like sadly passed away in this build, then, you know, you could kind of have them creeping around in the maze. Why not? I mean, that's what I do with a maze personally. I think mazes are really creepy. I've only ever been in one my whole life, and I was probably about 7 when I went in it. It was a theme park in England, so it was a really long time ago. And it was really scary. I didn't have my mum there, so from a child's perspective, it was dreadful. It was like the worst thing that could have happened to me, and it was only a tiny maze, but you know, it was the point of it. It was the principle of it, so I wasn't happy about that. But at this point, I'd skipped round the back, and I didn't actually do anything to the front whatsoever. It was the fact that I'd left it on pause for a really long time whilst I ate my dinner. So I was doing that. I mean, it's not exactly the most interesting thing that I could have possibly told you, but you know, everyone's got to eat. I had to eat. That's what I was doing. So anyway, this was the back area, which I was really happy with, and I'm going to show you that now. So this area here is a place for the family, or I guess for the guests, to sit down, and they can really have a barbecue through that area, and through those archways at the back they can look out throughout the garden. And it's private because it's inside, but it's quite nice because it's like an open house, and I really like that. So I left that in, and I was really happy with that idea. And you'll see on the top of it, so I've got this area which is going to be the terrace area. It's like the balcony, I guess, but I tried to make it as close to film as possible. So I'd make sure like that Gatsby was somewhere along that terrace area, like sipping his drink. I think he drinks like martini or something, I'm not sure, but he'd be on the top there, and he'd just be looking really chilled out, and just looking out like to his beautiful property, and probably finding Daisy. So that's what I was doing, and I had a lot of fun, of course, filming the introduction there. It's not really an introduction, but it's just something that I like to have before my videos, especially the big builds that I do. I'm going to be doing that a lot recently, especially with the film ones. I mean, if I do any more film ones, which I will be doing more film ones. But I mean, it's just something that you would have seen, which is quite nice. Bit of an introduction going on there. So anyway, I was adding some ivy to the back. It wasn't particularly important to me to have it neat here, so I just kind of left it like that, I guess. But I do like that because it just kind of covers it up, and it looks quite nice, and it fits into the build as well. And I mean, if you don't want the top of it there, then you can just delete it and you can just have it how it is. But it's really up to you what you want to do with this area. I just thought that for the people that do like it being really detailed around the back, and that want to kind of fit in with the theme of the house still, I'd leave it like that, because I think that it's easier to leave something on and take it off than it is to not have it on in the first place and then have to add it for yourselves later. So that's what I was doing. This is the part where I was trying to make a place, or at least, I suppose, yeah, make a place where I could have singers and dancers and fireworks and stuff. I mean, of course we can't have fireworks, which would be completely amazing, and I really do hope that we'll get that for The Sims 4. Fingers crossed for next November. Or this November. Yes, this November. So this was the part where I was, of course, thinking about that kind of stuff. I was thinking about the way that we could potentially have a place for the family to sit, or the guests to have somewhere extra, which would be like a cool terrace area. I'm probably going to have like a hot tub area up here, but I'm really undecided. Like, I just wasn't sure what to make of it, so I don't know. I'll let you know on that one, but I'm not sure what to do with it yet. But I'm just going to probably experiment in the next part and see what I like, see what I don't like, and see what happens. But honestly, I could not take my eyes off the back of this place. I don't know if anyone else has realised this, but because I keep moving the camera, it's really, really tricky. But to the tree side right now, I guess to the left, we can just briefly see it sometimes, but it's a secret area and it leads to the bluffs, which is amazing. So of course, if you did put this plot on game and you did use it the way I use it, then this would look pretty awesome if you have guests and stuff, because that would be amazing. And I'm really, really happy with how that just kind of worked out. I just love it. I love secret passages like that. It's just an amazing thing for this house to have, I think. So then I was adding some trees to the maze and I was just kind of covering it up because I did want this privacy whole feel of it. I did, like I was trying my best to make something really, really private and make it quite nice. So then I was going back to the pool area and I was putting in some of this kind of brick, I guess, around the pool. I just thought that because the front had it, it would look really lovely if the back had it as well. It was a little bit difficult to landscape this area though, because it doesn't really have anywhere that I could potentially blend this brick into like the front did, because I think the front looked pretty good in terms of like blending the actual rock in, but this area was really, really difficult, so I had a hard time doing that. I was also just putting some general plants around this area and trying to make it look quite neat looking. I was just trying to fill it up and make it look a little bit fairy tale-ish, just like the rest of the house really, just anything that could potentially fit in with the build I was doing it. I also had a bit of spare stuff to put here. I mean, you could put whatever you wanted around here. You could put children's climbing frames and stuff in if you wanted to. I didn't want to because I wanted to keep with the whole theme of Gatsby himself, and I just thought that he wouldn't even be thinking about kids yet. He'd be like thinking about, you know, romance and stuff with Daisy, so I wanted to leave that out pretty much, so that's what I did. Then I was just adding some plants around the side. I went with lavender because I love lavender, and I've always had it in my houses, in my gardens before, like not actually on the Sims. I'm not talking about the Sims now, I'm talking about my real houses. And I've always had it growing up, and I just think it's like the nicest plant ever. In fact, my wedding in April, because I'm getting married, I've been asked so much, like, oh my god, you're engaged? Seriously? Yes, I'm engaged. I'm getting married in April and I can't wait. But when I get married, I'm having a lavender wedding, so that's my colour scheme, and I am so super excited for that, so that would be really, really cool. And that's that. So at this point I was putting in some lights because I wanted to brighten the area up a little bit, and I wanted to show you this because I wanted you to be able to see how it's going to look on night mode and how much lights can really make the difference. And it's kind of rich me saying that because a lot of the time I do actually forget the lights in my builds. I do try and remember them as much as possible, but I mean sometimes I just forget. Like sometimes it's not possible for me to remember every single thing, but I do try to do that mostly. But what I was doing is I was adding some plants and making it look pretty special, which I was really happy with how that turned out. And I just think the lights really do make this build, and especially the pool area. I think when it comes to actually decorating the pool area and putting some furniture there, I think it's going to be really interesting, which I am really excited for. So you'll see that, but I was just putting some lights around here as well. I was trying to brighten up all the areas, and even though I didn't do inside the house, so the house would be looking pretty dark at this point, quite haunted and abandoned probably, but I mean it will not look anything like that in part 2. It will look completely different, really bright inside hopefully, so you'll get to see that. Then I was just round to the front, I was doing the same thing, but I was also putting in the last little details to the fountains and things, and just putting some rocks around because I do like these rocks and I think that they go with the build quite well. And I think that if rocks are done in the right way, they can look really neat as well. I was trying to make them look neat but also different as well, so I didn't want them to look all the same or anything, so that's what I was doing. I was like mixing the rocks up a bit and doing all that stuff. I put so many lights there, so you'll see that, but I didn't actually use all of those lights, so I did actually remove quite a lot of them after the video. I just put them in there because there's just so many, but I'm sorry if those lights do kind of distract you from the build, because that's about 10,000 simoleons just in those lights. But no, honestly, I do take a lot of them out. So anyways, that is the build. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I'm going to show you the screenshots. So this is the long view away from the castle. You can see it out at the sea, and I really love this photo. This is a little bit closer now. You can see the pier below, and I really like this one too. It's really big. Then we've got the bird's eye view of the house, or at least the bird's eye view where you can see the garden. We've got some landscaping at the front of the build. You can see some cars there, which I put in. It's a little bit of a further view away so you can see the actual view of it from the side. Then you can see the fountain, of course. I wanted to leave that photo in so everyone can see what I did there. This is the back of the garden view, which I was really happy with. But that is the end of the build, so I really hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you all for part 2. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll speak to you all soon.